Thank you for attending today's session. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, as we discovered earlier. There's quite a few of you from all around across the globe today, so thank you. Thank you for attending. Today's session is BIM Level II Update and Digital Britain. What you're going to take away from today's session? Well, today's session you will discover exactly what the mandate actually means. You will learn the exact requirements you need to meet for BIM Level 2 projects. You will discover the lessons learnt so far and where next in the journey for Digital Britain. Today's session should last between 40 to 45 minutes long. It's going to be split into two sections, apologies. There's going to be a presentation followed by a Q&A session towards the end. I will be hosting along with David. As always, we do have a ton to get through, so we're going to move quickly and take questions towards the end of the session. So stay to the end for the Q&A with David, so he may answer questions you may have. For everyone live on today's webinar, again at the very end of this session, once we have finished the Q&A and the session is completely closed, there will be a pop-up window which will appear, which will have a link for today's slides with David, a link for our next webinar with Nick Tune, the former Treasurer and Director of Building Smart and the CEO of Co-Builder. If you would like a recording of today's session, links for previous webinars, or to schedule a call via my online diary, again, please stay to the end, and I'll show you exactly how to schedule a call and where to look for webinars, etc. Now, welcome to everyone who has attended some of the previous sessions of the Open BIM REC webinar series. It really is great to receive such positive comments from you all regarding the content of these educational workshops. With the BIM REC webinar series being an open invitation of a series of events, we have a lot of new people attending today, so welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Barie Hasib. I am the founder of the Open BIM REC webinar series, Managing Director of BIM REC and AEC Recruitment. BIM REC are essentially a recruitment partner for individuals and organisations really looking to win with BIM. Now, for those of you, again, new to the series of BIM REC webinars, we are often asked why BIM REC put together this series of free webinars. Excuse me. Well, whilst extensively surveying our candidates, clients and the marketplace, we discovered our industry still has a long way to go with regards to BIM. So what better way to help educate than bring BIM leaders directly to your desk or mobile device. As you know, BIM is a journey. Some companies and individuals have had huge successes, whilst for others it's been a real steep learning curve, or they're still yet to embark on their journey. Our goal, whatever level you're currently at, is to really help you win with BIM and help share experiences and lessons learned so far. I'm very proud and privileged to announce we have David Philp back with us today. David is one of the best known internationally recognised experts on BIM. David is currently head of the UK BIM Task Group and Director of BIM for EMEA at AECOM. David is presenting today on BIM Level 2 Update and Digital Britain. With that said, I would now like to unmute David and make David the presenter. David, you should now have your screen visible.
Hi, Barry. Thank you for inviting me back, and hopefully you are seeing mine.
Yeah, see your screen perfectly.
Excellent, brilliant. And hopefully you can't see the bar. 2 seconds, I'll minimise that.
Sure.
Great stuff. Well, thank you, Barry, and thank you everyone for coming on to hear about BIM Level 2, our update in terms of where we are with the UK and that journey towards digital built Britain. I think it's fair to say that we live in very interesting times, and what we are seeing in terms of our programme, and I think we often talk about this term building information modelling, but I think what we're starting to witness is construction being transformed by an array of digital connected technologies, and we're starting to think more and more about the digitisation of construction. And I think what we have witnessed through Level 2 BIM is starting to think about data and information that's really essentially equipping construction professionals with early warnings and really using information to mitigate risk, and actually starting to more and more give insights that are going to give opportunities for both growth, smart decision making, and I think bringing real added value to the construction process. We're also in the UK, we're heading to a key time. The 4th of April 2016 is when we reach one of our key targets in terms of achieving Level 2 BIM across all centrally procured HM government departments. So essentially, we've been on a journey for the last couple of years as part of the government construction strategy to bring central government up to Level 2 maturity. And at the same time, we've been working to build Level 2 as a British standard as well. So really exciting time, and the 4th of April 2016 is a key milestone. But it is a milestone. The UK is very much on a journey towards digital transformation, and we'll start to move ultimately from Level 2 towards Level 3, and what we refer to now as Digital Built Britain. So one of the big things we're hearing is actually, what's Level 2, and are we ready? So we'll try and answer that over the next 35-40 minutes over the webinar. So I said obviously the 4th of April is a key milestone in terms of journey. It's a journey we've been on for a few years now, and also we've learned lots of lessons along the road, not just in terms of a task group, but as industry as well. And I think we saw the pull coming from government as a smart, intelligent client, looking at trying to create that digitised estate, but also the push as well from industry. And I think what we're seeing more and more is Level 2 has become a catalyst, and to some degree this thing called BIM has been a bit of a Trojan horse, and it's actually been about innovation. And I think what we're seeing, Level 2 and the whole programme is kind of unlocked, if you like, that next wave of innovation, and it's underpinned by that world of digital as well. So just a reminder, this is the original government construction strategy that was launched back in 2011. Well, what did it do? As part of the whole strategy itself, it sought to reduce government costs by 15 to 20% by the end of the current Parliament. It was also about better outcomes, better and social economic infrastructure, better procurement, the lean client, and start to think more and more about building standards to get consistency, lean supply chain. And I think one of the key things we've embedded now within Level 2 BIM, and I'll talk about it in a couple of minutes, is shaking hands between the facilities management, i.e. operational and capital expenditure, and the golden thread that came with soft landings. There was also a focus on benchmarking as well, to make sure we could demonstrably show that we're making these services, these savings. And at the heart of it was obviously having a cohesive BIM strategy as well that underpinned the requirements of the government construction. So a big part achieving Level 2 BIM on all certain procured projects by the 4th of April 2016. So we're almost at that key milestone in terms of where we're going. So actually, what does that synthesize down to? Well, actually, when we talk about the 4th of April, it's essential about these central departments in terms of their journey plan, being able to put out into the market good quality employers' information requirements. And I think one of the key documents as well as part of the Level 2 suite is that master information delivery plan, trying to bring all the information together into a matrix, understanding the responsibilities, what's required, and a big part is how much information. Look at it in the context of both level of detail, graphical information, and level of information on graphical, what we refer to as level of definition. And we've worked hard to make sure that EIRs have clear purpose. We answer a plain language question. So trying to create data in a collaborative environment that's got clear purpose, and clients that are becoming very good as part of the tender process, articulating what their information requirements are. Well, why do it? I think what we're seeing more and more is our market, this thing that we recognise as traditional construction, is being squeezed more and more on one side with advanced manufacturing and built off-site. And I think a big part of that as well is advanced logistics. On the other, all sectors we're seeing are being squeezed by that digital construction economy. So what we'll see as we head towards 2016 and beyond is we move into the realms of the industrial strategy of 2025. We'll see a market that starts to change into what we refer to now is Industry 4.0, an industry that's virtualized and has got real-time data analytics within there. It's a massive market as well, a market that's set to grow, especially in terms of digital infrastructure, 70% by 2025. So a huge transition in terms of that digital economy along the journey plan as well. So you can see that real imperative in the drivers. We've got to start to think about how we can change industry and help upskill towards that digital program environment. So that shift towards Industry 4.0. So what are the drivers been for BIM and still out there as we head towards April? Well, as we know, we've got mandates out there. We've got HM government in terms of level 2 BIM by April 4th, 2016. And up in Scotland, there's about 400 days to go as well, still targeting level 2 BIM. In the private sector, we're seeing it being a key part of ITT requirements and requests for procurement. Another thing as well, I think it's fair to say we're seeing it more and more as part of actually, we need data for our operational data requirements as well. So we're seeing a clear pull from clients, but equally, we're seeing that push as well in terms of the supply chain, thinking about how we can actually use BIM and digitization to offer innovation and work winning. I think there's still a need, despite the rise in terms of the economy, for better efficiency in the supply chain, underpinned by better productivity. And I think that's a key thing that BIM Level 2 has been. It's certainly helped drive and enable, I think more enable better productivity at all stages. And the big thing is helping organisations give competitive advantage, that added value. Conversely, in terms of pain gain, it's taking away that de-risking as well. It's helping de-risk and taking away a lot of pain. We're able to visualise and understand the pain points a lot more better, especially during operational stages as well. And I think it's fair to say to us, as we head into 2016, it's kind of expected us. We now live in a modern industry. This is what we should be doing anyways by default. Get to that point where we've reached a tipping point, and actually do we need the clients to actually stimulate what we're doing as well. And actually I think one of the big drivers for this, and probably one of the things we don't consider, is mice. And there's a great article in Global Construction Review that actually showed this small mouse and how it sabotaged a tunnel project over in Belgium. It was a simple case that actually it got in and managed to eat all the archived drawings. And you think, what did that mean to that project? There's crucial repairs, the crumbling roads that have been actually held back. Can you imagine if they'd actually digitized and used Kobe, then they'd be able to retrieve, if they like, the data in that project and the digital files, that digital asset information model. So it just goes to show some of the key drivers that are there for level 2 BIM. It shows that journey that we've been on as a task group in terms of formation of a group, trying to put key documents out to the marketplace. And I think there's a couple of things that stand out and becoming more and more important. We've got our BIM for groups. We've now got about 40 of the groups. BIM for SME, our BIM hubs throughout the regions, all doing a great job in helping support. And right at the heart of it, we've got this creation, I'll come on to what it means in a minute, of level 2 standards and tools. And I think it's fair to say we're very much at the vanguard of that journey in terms of having these consistent and well-placed standards to help us in terms of information management and data exchange. And at the same time, we've been working in terms of the government departments, testing hypothesis, and trying to make sure there's legacy through departmental stewardship groups as well. And one of the things as we go beyond April, we're working with departments to start to think more and more about data validation as well. So 2016 is a major staging post, both in terms of central government and that link to the 2025 industrial strategy and digital built Britain as well. So keeping that tension up, moving the journey, and starting to think about digital built Britain as well. So if we look at the journey plan we've gone on, or going on in terms of UK, and I think at the first step is a transition, that transition from analog to digitised. We've been on it. We started off with level 0 in terms of paper. We moved on to level 1 BIM. And I still think level 1 BIM is often underplayed. It consists of 2 key documents within there, BS 1192 2007 and BS 7000. So thinking about a collaborative data environment, how we managed information over a project lifecycle, and design management. These are the keys to make sure we can unlock level 2. Let's start at level 1 and make sure we've got a good foundation in place. And also, we move to level 2 and we're starting to move away from CAD and 3D, and we're starting to think more and more about parametric. We're thinking about information modeling, and we're also thinking more and more about library management within there as well. Whilst level 2 is collaborative, we can start to imagine this thing called level 3 BIM and what that will mean in terms of integrated real-time data. So moving from collaborative to that holy grail of level 3. But the reality is, it'll be a gentle transition through. And we've got so much work and so much benefit still to be done in level 2. So if I can give one bit of advice, focus very much on level 2 BIM just now. We're just completing the standards and the guidance around about it. Keep an eye on level 3, but focus very much just now on achieving level 2, and then think longer term about how that can be optimized. So we're on a great journey from analog to digitization, and a move from being output-based to thinking more and more about outcome. As we start to think more into that level 3 space, we're thinking more about outcome-based contracts, take the jet engine, power by the hour. We can start to think about more in terms of how we can use real-time data and performance data to start more and more about outcomes and construction as a service. And at the same time we're doing this, we're starting to strip out all this process waste as well. I think if anything that's been a big part of the journey. We're starting a great conversation with industry about becoming more lean and stripping out that waste that's been inherent in what we do. We saw some great journeys as well, and this is Environment Agency's journey as well, if we kind of overlay where they've came. You start back in 2011, injecting the BIM protocol into their appointments, making sure they've got the base of a common data environment, putting in the employer's information requirements, then starting to think about information delivery plans, execution plans, master information, and then that model program delivery template. And as we head towards 16, our focus is on COBE and how that can be used for verification and validation. So a real journey plan that they went on from level 1 to level 2. And indeed you can see the longer shift into that world of digital engineering and a shift when heading up to 2025 or starting to think about how we move into that progressively into level 3. So level 2 there you can see their target 20% in Capex, starting to unlock more digital efficiencies and heading towards 33% Totex. So a really mature journey going through there and starting to think more and more as well about integrated geospatial data and how that links to asset information as well. Now we're often asked, and I think it's a key thing to take away from today, is actually what is level 2. So level 2 is a suite of standards from the British Standards Institute, and you can see that onion diagram. So let's work our way through the document. So we start off with PAS 1192 Part 5. Now that looks to put a holistic security wrapper, an appropriate one as well. It's a specification for security-minded BIM, especially around about common data environment and smart asset management. So as we mentioned, starting to think holistically and starting to put a plan that's appropriate for the risk of that asset. So PAS 1192 Part 5, the key document in level 2. We then move in a layer and start to move in, and we then start to think about soft landings. We're starting to think about British Standard 8536. Starting to think about how we brief with the end in mind. So we're starting to think about that whole, as we mentioned, bringing Capex and Opex up together. And we'll touch again this in a minute, but soft landing. So first two standards in level 2, PAS 112 Part 5 and BS 8536. We can then start to imagine some of the if you like, the value realization. And then we come into the next document within our suite, which is the information exchange method, in our case COBE, the Construction Operation Building Information Exchange, BS 1192 Part 4. And right at the heart of it, we have PAS 1192 Part 2, which looks at information management, in this case in asset, the capital delivery phase. And we can swap that out for operational management with Part 3. So let's go through the standards for Part 2 again, just to make sure we're clear. PAS 1192 Part 2 Part 5, BS 8536, COBE, BS 1192 Part 4, PAS 1192 Part 2, and its companion Part 3. So a series of standards that underpin level 2. So there are standards that actually make it up. So that's our true source of the truth. And again, they're supported by a series of tools within there. So imagine you've got tools to help you achieve that now, such as the CIC BIM protocol and the role of the information manager. We've got the digital plan of works to help inform and create an employer's information requirements, for describing geometry, and classifications such as Uniclass 2. So we have a suite of standards that achieve level 2, but they're helped, if you like, by a series of supporting tools. Now these standards help give us consistency of approach and help drive adoption. Now these come together, you can see on the right hand side, where we think at the very start about organisational requirements, often tied to your asset strategy, such as ISO 55000. By doing that, it starts to generate the pieces of information that build up your asset information requirement. Ultimately, part 3 helps specify your asset information model, the model that will be used during operation. But these parts inform the employer's information requirement, how we buy the data during the Capex stage. And the EIR also ties into plain language questions, the bits of data that's going to help us, if you like, answer the questions through the project lifecycle. So two distinct phases. PAS 1192 looks at the project information model during the capital expenditure stages, and PAS 1192 Part 3 looks at operational and from a model perspective, that asset information model. So hopefully people would see how that trinity all works together. And I think this is a key slide, and it's worth going back. I'm sure many of you have seen it before. But again, it starts with the end in mind. This is PAS 1192 Part 2, looking at assessment in need. You may have a lot of information already from a previous project, from a REBA Stage 7, from an end of life that you can pull forward. But essentially, we start with the creation. We've done our organisational requirements, our asset requirements. We pull them together into actually, as part of that tender documentation, the employer's information requirements. We'll then put that out to the marketplace, and we come back with an execution plan in 2 stages. First off, a pre-contract BIM execution plan that starts to look at, if you like, the strategy in terms of how the EIR is going to be delivered. And then post-award, that's developed into a post-contract BIM execution plan that will also include that master information delivery plan that looks at responsibilities, what information is required, when, and to what level of definition. We then start to go into build that project information model from both a design model and a construction model, all within the context of a common data environment. And we've got a graphical model, got non-graphical data and linked documentation. And you can see we've got a series, if you like, of what we call decision points and information exchanges that are going to help support the decision making and support the questions that are set out within the employer's information requirements. So we're producing data at an appropriate level of definition, and ultimately we can hand it across to our asset information model. And again, one of the things, if I can sort of signpost again, there's a great series of videos as well undertaken by B1M that I think really bring these processes to life in a nice, simple way with much better graphics in mind. We've also concentrate, and I think these are 2 things, I think just focus on them. ES8536, it's part of the Level 2 suite, and that encapsulates these soft landings and the need for someone to be at the very beginning to inform the employer's information requirements from an Opex point of view. We need to be able to test the model to be able to answer during the design stages, is it going to be fit for operation? Make sure we test it and start to think about post-occupancy evaluation. People often say, where do we start as well? I think, for me, as well as PAS 1 and 2, Part 5 security, Part 3 is really, go back to that, we can never say it over enough, start with the end in mind. How information management exists, within that context of asset management, ISO 55000, that should be the key starting point. And we've got to start to think about how we use and link these 2 suites of documents together. So really, really important. Just a bit of focus in CBS 8536 and what that looks like in terms of Capex and Opex shaking hands. Thinking about total expenditure, we're thinking right at the beginning, smart briefing that draws past experience together, reviewing the targets that have been set in terms of social outcomes, economic outcomes, and indeed the environmental performance outcomes as well. Moving to stage 2, using the models to regularly give reality checks. Is it doing what it should be doing from an operational point of view? Is it going to give the outcomes that you want? We move over to stage 3, we're thinking about from an Opex point of view, operational readiness, making sure we can test the model to make sure we've got a good handover. And again, starting to think about structured post-occupancy evaluation with documents, with surveys, and various KPIs that we can pull back to the start of the next one and establish actual outcomes and the lessons that were learned. Task Group is also working very hard with British Standards Institute to deliver a series of work packages that are going to support Level 2, and these will progressively roll out from April onwards, making sure that our core documents for Level 2 are aligned and updated, make sure that we've got standard development in terms of alignment, but also start to put some guidance stuff around about it. And these will all be contained in what we're calling a Level 2 portal. So that will start to progressively roll out from the 4th of April, and it will start to, if you like, very much have that static source of truth where you come in from Level 2 and the standards. And again, we can never say these standards are the key to Level 2 that we talked about. They are also free to download as well. You can go into the BSI BIM bookstore and download them free of charge as a PDF. But again, you'll see the Level 2 portal coming soon. So we move into this. Well, what we start to do, as you can see on the left-hand side, we start to create a series of what we call PIMs, these project information models. We pull them together into that asset information model, and you can start to see that how we then start to create. And this is the journey we're going on just now, creating digitized asset information models. So we're in that process of trying to create, through all the mandate and such like, that digitized built asset state, being able to pull and aggregate data sets together, and we can start to use that whether it's running reports, apps, or analytics. But the common data environment is hugely key to making this happen. And you can see again, as we go through the Level 2 process, again we've got defined gateways, we use our EIRs and COBE to start to think about how we can answer questions. So we're thinking very much about using our data, using COBE, the model data, and validated data validation as we go through that process to test the questions. So we're thinking about defining information, packaging, exchanging it, and validating across that whole project lifecycle with COBE and transmittal validation. And you can start to see how we go through that whole project lifecycle, defined through the EIR, and start to exchange information to validate questions as we go through it. I think one of the things that the UK mandate has done is kind of pulled the thread on traditional construction and seeing what's happened. And there's some good lessons out there. There's a few from Crossrail, and some great ones. Data is a valuable resource. It should be treated as such. We've got to think about it more and more, how we liberate the value of it, and making sure there's validation. Making sure that you establish requirements, and that again from the end user client right through the whole supply chain, and start to think about it at both business and project level, so both enterprise and project as well. Structured data is really important. Take the time at the beginning, start with the end in mind, try and understand it, and think about classifications as well. Classifications for work breakdown structure, asset breakdown structure, cost, if these can be aligned, that good asset breakdown really, really key. So spend some time in searching a data set with the end in mind. And start to think more and more about keeping the models geometrically light, and start to think about the non-graphical data actually becoming more relational in nature. And become data-centric. Data is at the heart of everything. Think more and more about digital documentations and how we use that digital data within the context of a common data environment. And be aware and be mindful of data interoperability. That's why we've got tools there such as COBE to help. And avoid being led by IT. This should be very much information requirements led. It should be a process thing. And I think if we've learned, people don't like change. This is our biggest thing. If anything, we've started a great discussion around about behavioural change in the industry. So remember, this is about change management as it is about much as technology. So, and BIM I think is a great thing just to bring people together in a collaborative nature. We're also starting to witness, I think it's fair to say, in the UK, this thing called Level 2. It's creating innovation, it's disrupting. And at the same time, we're having to think about how we deliver differently as well, and indeed operate. And I think the big thing for us we're seeing it is more about through soft landings, user outcomes, good quality information, but we're putting more and more a focus on that longer term asset management and maintenance as well. That's really the key to what we're doing. So we mentioned at this moment in time, there's a real focus in terms of especially clients, with both government and clients, and indeed private sector, to create these asset lifecycle models, understand their key decision points, and create these good quality employers' information requirements, i.e. the information that's needed at each stage, along with that required level of detail and definition. So key deliverables. So hopefully folk have got their heads around that hopefully see DIRs now. I know there's varying quality out there, but understand it and understand how your BIM execution plan should respond to it, and how you're starting to answer plain language questions, and how COBE can help actually answer them. So we're seeing, employers going through that asset lifecycle mapping and information requirements, and there's a typical one on the left-hand side. Simple simplicity. From the client point of view, 5 client information exchanges. So what we've been doing, well, you can see Mark View there has been chair of the BIM Transfer Group, and we've been really, for the last couple of years, creating capacity in the market. And I think that still for us is a real challenge that's out there. We've still got to grow that capacity, and I think we're starting to see that point now. Well, the next year or so will outstrip demand. So it's a big part of what we're doing with it, how we raise awareness out there. And a big part of what we can do is give clear guidance and help try and create a willingness to collaborate, especially for a BIM floor group. So we're helping to try and grow capability and capacity, and in a big part, trying to sustain that transition as well. Huge part. I think what we've seen as well, we talk about technologies, we talk about data, but actually this is about new behaviours required as well. Let's call them Citizen 2.0. We're thinking about collaborative procurement with Level 2 BIM, and we've got to make sure, and this is one of the big things we've been trying to address, to make sure we get good client behaviour that's consistent in terms of procurement strategy, and we do understand the process. So I think that's been a big part. It's something we've been working with departments to train and accomplish, and that's a key part, not just in public sector, it's private sector as well. We're trying to turn this into very much meaningful and purposeful collaboration. And there's some good frameworks out there, not inherently part of the Level 2 suite, but BS 11000, a great way for trying to instill collaborative frameworks in what we're doing. I think we all know about the benefits that Level 2 has been doing there, and again, I think you all go on your own journey in terms of what that looks like. We saw some great things in terms of our programme. I think the early part is just that engagement, bringing everybody together into the same room around about this model that becomes a campfire, bringing together facilities management, the operation teams, along with Capex, right at the beginning. We can visualise it better. We can actually test life cycle solutions right at the beginning. I think it's fair to say the supply chain actually understands the tender packages a lot better as well. Better understanding, well, it helps reduce risk, and risk in terms of programme risk. It might be key risks in terms of areas of delivery. We can run multiple 4D scenarios within there. We can do better scenario planning, and again using that non-graphical data more and more as well. I think we're seeing that what's the impact of change as well over that project life cycle. We can run more and more. We're seeing much more accurate models as well within there as well. It's starting to even start to go nowadays of real-time data logging as well. And I think one of the low-hanging fruits is suddenly we can actually automate or map across our data sets from the project information model into that asset information model, pulling our data, if we've cleansed it, into a CAPM, a computer-assisted facilities model. And I think one of the big things is actually buy our data once, at the right level of detail. We often hear saying, oh, we've got to front load it. Well, actually, what we're seeing is an employer's information requirements set up. There's still a logical level of definition that goes over a project life cycle. And we're seeing more collaborative outcomes as well. And I think that's a big thing. We need to be more outcome focused in what we're doing. And ultimately, as I mentioned, we're seeing more of that digitised asset management strategy. And you can see some of the targets that have achieved, not just through BIM, but BIM is part of that government construction strategy, ranging from 12 to 20% savings. And we're not just seeing that in the UK, but these savings are certainly to be out, globally, and could be unlocked. We're also seeing, we often say that, BIM is a verb, I think it's many things to different people, but, it is an act of creating an information model in managing data. And this is a journey plan that High Speed 2's got. It's set to be the biggest project in Europe. You think about how long that project's going to last. Kick off 2016, the first phase is handover in 2026. Think about the technological changes that will go through. It might even move from level 2 to level 3, and who knows as well, it might even move into the world of digital legacy and level 4. But they want to move into that seamless utilisation of data for management and operation there. And I don't know how well you can see it on the slide, but if you look about just the right halfway up, you'll see a little dibble. And that's getting the point. We've got to make sure that we actually have attention span for BIM. It can have its challenges, but we don't want to make sure, like the devil, you actually pull back, you change the routing, and head back to traditional risky roads, back to the world of paper. So it needs leadership. It needs to be part of a strategy. It is about collaboration. So we know there's a better outcome in terms of doing BIM. And I think you start to see smart clients such as High Speed 2. A great quote from Andrew McNaughton, BIM is our lifeblood. It's central to the nervous system for information management and decision making. So we're seeing these big projects there. And Crossrail, as it moves towards its journey in 2018, you can see what that means in terms of building two railways, the physical railway and that digital railway. Build better before you build, prototyping within there. Absolutely superb. And let's turn our focus to Europe as well. It's been a key part of the EU BIM task group, BIM task group as well. It's helping set up and establish the EU BIM working group, bringing together BIM, at a national level to a common European approach. Bringing together that digitised European public approach. And I think we should be very proud of the work that the team and the members you see there are doing, trying to unify what we're doing. Some key figures for you. You can beat some good key statistics. Well, 1.2 trillion, that's roughly the value of the construction sector in across Europe, which equates to, I think, an average 9.9% GDP. So huge value in terms of what construction does. 14.9 million people within the construction sector in Europe that we've got to move towards digitisation. And roughly, in terms of there, we've got round about, if you like, I gave you some wrong figures there. We've got 95%, and so we've got 3.1 million, 95% working in organisations, less than 20%. So again, you can see some of the key statistics. And again, waste within there that we could strip out. Again, why is that waste there? Misunderstanding clients' needs, miscommunication, rework, and a big thing, recreation of data, or actually poor or no information management that we can strip out. You can see that the journey that Europe's starting to go on with digitisation as well. You can start to see the ball on the left, that digital ball, as we move more and more as it moves into the world of construction and operation, the more the value we get out, the more it predicates it, the more it will drive innovation and collaboration and better efficiency. And indeed, a big thing for governments as well is transparency, value for money and growth as well. So not just BIM in the UK, but BIM in the context of that EU procurement directive. We'll also turn our attention now to Construction 2025, and you can start to see the ambitions that have been set out there, and this ties into the whole world of Level 3, the digital built asset, and that 21st century asset infrastructure. Lowering costs, not just in terms of Capex, but across the whole project life cycle. Delivering faster by 50%. Well, we're starting within that point to think about automation, and we're starting to think about industrial automation, and indeed that's automation of process, along with, additive manufacture and all these good things. You start to bring these two things together, BIM and these great bedfellows in terms of, if you like, automation of process, and start to think about industrial size manufacture as well. We'll start to export it, we export new skills, especially digital construction expense, what the UK is doing already. And I think the big thing, one of our big challenges as construction professionals is how do you use all this data to help come up with solutions and simulations that are going to reduce greenhouse gases as well. Big part of what we're doing. So key targets that both Level 2 and ultimately Level 3 will help focus upon. And this is the Level 3 model. You can see what we're doing as we're starting to add. You can see the top triangles, operational and performance activities. So we're starting to think about performance management, starting to think about using big data, and this term starting to creep in now, dependency analytics, real-time data analytics that are being pulled in from data logs, telemetry, and other sensors. So we're starting to think about the Internet of Things on a construction and industrial scale. We're also starting to think more and more about not just in terms of one singular asset, but we're starting to think about how buildings interact with transportation, water and utilities, and we can start to truly think about how it fits in with the smart city grid as well. And then you can see another layer there in terms of people. So we're starting to think about Level 3, collaboration to integration. And you can see there we're starting to think about Level 4 ultimately in terms of social outcomes in people. Just a different way of laying it out. You can see our Level 2 is looked to in terms of better delivery and better management of the asset in terms of better operate, Level 3, we're starting to think about operational business performance within there as well. So you can start to think about what this is going to look like when multiplied across portfolios, and that's the whole digital built Britain. Ultimately, a shift to level 4 in terms of better social outcomes as well. It might be in terms of healthcare, it might be in judicial, but huge prizes as we continue up that ramp. And what we're seeing as level 3 is starting to imagine new business models as well. We're starting to think about being able to deposit performance data, measure in-service performance, and compare it to as brief. So we can also start to think about new economic models that are outcome-based, a bit like your engine there, powered by the hour. And we start to think more and more about social outcomes in terms of healthcare, it might be in performance. And if you're a sensor-rich environment, we can start to think about feedback loops that actually start to give that ability to deliver long-term improvements in asset performance as well. And a big thing we're seeing more and more is that linkage with gamification and that business model simulation through level 3 environments, how we're using augmented reality, virtual reality. We can start to also prototype business models on the shop floor as well. So that's a bit about a journey through where we are with the BIM task group at this moment in time as we head up to our key thing in terms of April the 4th, 2016, and indeed beyond. We go on to the website and have a look, and one of the things we'd please signpost awards is we mentioned 40 BIM for working groups. Please get involved. You can get involved with there, you can learn more from it, and you can actually, find out more information that might be relevant to your sector. Download the standards, have a read them, and find out what that means to you. So thank you for listening.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. Thanks for the update. It's been very informative. Want to try to be respectful of time as much as possible. Had a ton of questions come in. Do you have 5 minutes? I know you've got to rush off to a meeting soon.
I can give you 5, Barie, but only for easy ones.
Fantastic. Oh, I don't know about this one then, actually. How can a company be 100% sure to deliver BIM Level 2? And what happens if the company fails to meet Level 2 mandate deadline?
Well, it's a good question. So it's a very good question, actually. So in the Level 2 project, it will be kick-started by the client. So it will have as part of the tender process an employer's information requirement, setting out what information they will need should that party be successful. So the first thing you're going to do as that organisation is prepare, if you like, your pre-contract BIM execution plan. This is my strategy to do it. At that moment in time, there might not be a fully % level 2, have the ability, but it might say, well, this is what we're going to do in terms of embedding standards, or it might even be support from other consultants or such like. And basically, when we talk about being compliant, it's the ability to deliver to that EIR, be able to supply that information and the information that's set out within the employer's information requirement. And I think that's key.
Sure. So do you have to be certified?
No.
Okay.
No, there is no need for level 2 that does not require any certification. What it does require is to be able to demonstrate through your execution plan that you've got the appropriate resource and the appropriate systems in place to be able to deliver it. But it does not require any form of certification.
Okay, so this leads on nicely to the next one. How's the mandate being enforced? And is there any intention to widen the net from centrally procured to all public local authority projects? It goes on, I've spoken to a couple of regional fire services, and the first thing this kind of organisation usually asks is, do I have to do it?
Yeah. I mean, I like to think that we're getting to that point now. Actually, there's a compelling reason to do it beyond the mandate sort of thing. What happens if you don't? Well, it's interesting. We've started to see a few tenders being rejected now. For people that have to be compliant. So, in certain cases, the tender would be rejected. Because it's a part of if it's embedded within your contract and it's not being delivered, or it's not part of your tender response, then it can certainly be rejected for doing that. In terms of local authorities, we'll work hard with local authorities. I don't think there is a mechanism to mandate it out to the local authorities, but we must commend the local authorities for the work they're doing. They've been a great early adopter. And actually, one of the things that's actually in the process of setting up this week is BIM for police. We're seeing more and more police organisations that aren't subject to mandate, but they see the value in it. They want to unlock some of the level 2 value as well as part of that one. So it's always intention to help the local authorities on their journey.
Sure.
The local authority working group. So yeah, we want to make sure that we can help them with the journey. But there's, as far as I know, there's no lever to mandate for them.
Well, okay. It'll be superb if we could put the money that we saved into the construction projects for the police back into the police force, huh? Okay. One more question as well, because again, I'm conscious of your time. How prepared does the construction industry feel about BIM Level 2? How will this impact the day-to-day process of the construction industry?
Well, I always think in terms of, I've been in construction, 25 years, and I just think this is doing what we should be doing it right and doing it right. I mean, we talk about things like, for me, EIRs, Employers Information Requirements.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is, employers have been putting out requirements for many years, and now we're starting to think more and more about actually, as part of that EIR, just embedded within it, what information is required, having a nice structured way for the supply chain to understand. It's always probably been required, but it's never been structured. It's always been, we maybe need some data for information management. We've always responded back with things such as contractors' proposals, with method statements. Well, for me, a BIM execution plan is just part of that. It's one of your method statements, but it's your method statement, for your BIM, for your information management, essentially.
Sure.
So, I don't think there's a lot of things, but so we're starting to see it getting embedded within organisations.
Brilliant. And
I think BIM is helping organisations in their wider journey towards digitisation as well. And I think more and more we're seeing it, and let's, if we synthesise this and polarise it down, really what we're talking about is good quality information management. We're not talking about any additional data than we're talking about before, but we're getting an industry that becomes very efficient in its ability to compete internationally in a digital marketplace. And I think we should be very proud of the journey that the UK, Europe, and let's be honest, as a global industry, I think we should be proud upon the journey that we're going on.
Definitely.
I think it's an exciting thing to be part of construction.
Like you've said many times throughout this presentation today, start with the end in mind, huh?
Completely. Circular economy.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, as I say, I'm conscious that you do have to shoot, David, so thank you for your time. For everyone, if I'm just going to take back the screen now, David, with regards to our next session, bear with me. So you should now be able to see my screen. As stated beforehand, our next webinar is, in fact, prior to speaking about this session, David's mentioned the EIR a number of occasions today, PAS 1192.2 and PAS 1192.3. For additional information on any of those subjects, please do go on to the bimrec.com/previous-webinars. On there we have the EIR discussed in depth really with Ralph Montague, and we also have Mervyn Richards, OBE, presenting on PAS 1192.2, and we also have David Churcher presenting on PAS 1192 Part 3. Obviously those two are both authors of those PASs. Please do take a look. You'll grab a lot of information with regards to those. Our next session is with Nick Tune. Nick is the former director and treasurer of Building Smart and the current CEO of Co-Builder UK, part of Co-Builder International. At the end of this session, once the webinar has been closed down, there'll be a pop-up box which will appear, which will have the link to Nick's session. So please do stay until the very end. Literally, as soon as I come out of this webinar, a pop-up box will appear and I'll have that information there. So I look forward to welcoming you to that event. On another note as well, quite a few people have asked how they can get in contact with me. If you have any questions for me or would like to understand how BIM REC can help either you personally or your organisation recruit and retain BIM specialists, please schedule a call via my online diary, which is bimrec.com/diary. So bimrec.com/diary. Well, until next time, take care, enjoy the rest of your morning, your afternoon or your evening. I look forward to welcoming you to future events. Take care, everybody. Thanks now. Bye-bye.